it talks about the fact that the Igigi, who were the working class Anunnaki beings who were cleaning out the Euphrates and Tigris River so they can create irrigation and create a bustling civilization, also they were doing the actual construction themselves. No people needed, just them working.
What if the story of humanity's creators wasn't myth, but a warning we were never meant to understand? For 4,500 years, clay tablets lay buried beneath the deserts of Iraq, silent witnesses to a story so dangerous that scholars chose to call it mythology rather than history. These aren't tales of gods in the clouds or legends meant to inspire awe. They describe beings who descended from the heavens, built the first cities, and engineered humanity itself to serve as their workforce. The Anunnaki, as they called themselves, left behind a civilization, the Sumerians.
According to interpretations of the Sumerian tablets, the gods were called the Anunnaki.
That gave us writing, mathematics, astronomy, law, and agriculture. We celebrate their inventions, yet when they explained where humanity came from, we dismissed it as fantasy. Why did we choose to accept some knowledge but reject other truths? Who decided which parts of the Sumerian story were worth believing? Today, we're going to examine these ancient tablets, uncover what mainstream academia refuses to acknowledge, and confront a question that could rewrite everything we thought we knew about human history. What if the Sumerians were telling the truth all along? The civilization that knew too much around 4500 BCE. Something extraordinary emerged from the alluvial plains of Mesopotamia. A civilization appeared that would lay the foundations for everything we now call human progress. They called themselves the Sumerians, and within a few centuries, they had developed achievements that would take other cultures thousands of years to match. They created cuneiform script around 3200 BCE, the world's first known writing system. They codified laws centuries before Hammurabi. They built irrigation systems that transformed desert into farmland. They constructed monumental ziggurats that still inspire awe today. They mapped the heavens with such precision that modern astronomers remain impressed by their accuracy. The Sumerians produced the first named author in human history, a priestess called Enheduanna.
She who wrote Enheduanna and Women of Mesopotamia from 3400 to 2000 BC is basically the story of women in the 3rd millennium BC, that's over 5,000 years ago,
who composed hymns that influenced religious literature for millennia. They created the Epic of Gilgamesh, a narrative so powerful that it predates Homer's works by over 1,000 years and contains themes that still resonate in literature today. They developed mathematics, including the base 60 system that gives us 60 minutes in an hour and 360 degrees in a circle. Every time you check your watch or measure an angle, you are using Sumerian knowledge. Archaeological excavations have confirmed the sophistication of their society. In 1922, Sir Leonard Woolley's excavation at the ancient city of Ur unearthed the Royal Cemetery, revealing artifacts that demonstrated an advanced culture with social stratification, religious rituals, and international trade networks spanning thousands of miles. The standard of Ur, intricate gold jewelry and musical instruments recovered from these sites now sit in museums around the world as evidence of Sumerian brilliance. Clay tablets recovered from Ur, Uruk, Eridu, and Nippur contain detailed records of commerce, law, medicine, and astronomy. Scholars celebrate these achievements as foundational to Western civilization. Textbooks praise Sumerian contributions to human progress. Universities teach their innovations as the starting point of recorded history. But here is where the story becomes strange. Those same tablets, written by those same people, using that same script, also contain detailed accounts of human origins. They describe exactly how humanity was created, by whom, and for what purpose. They name the beings responsible. They explain the process used. They identify the locations where it happened. And when scholars translated these passages, they labeled them mythology and moved on. The same Sumerians whose commercial records we trust completely, whose legal codes we study seriously, whose astronomical observations we verify with modern instruments, suddenly become unreliable witnesses when they describe where humans came from. This selective acceptance reveals something troubling about how we construct our understanding of the past. The beings who came from heaven. The Sumerian tablets speak of beings called the Anunnaki. The name translates roughly to those who from heaven to earth came. These were not abstract deities representing natural forces or philosophical concepts. The texts describe them as a council of powerful beings who arrived on Earth from a distant world, established settlements, extracted resources, and ultimately created humanity to serve their purposes. The descriptions are specific, detailed, and consistent across multiple tablets spanning centuries of Sumerian civilization. According to these records, the Anunnaki were led by a triumvirate of powerful figures. Anu served as the sky god and king of the Anunnaki Council, the ultimate authority who remained mostly in the heavens. Enlil held the title of Lord of the Air and commanded operations on Earth with strict discipline and occasional cruelty toward humanity. Enki, the god of waters and wisdom, emerged as humanity's protector, the one who advocated for our creation and repeatedly intervened to save us from destruction. These three figures appear throughout Sumerian literature with consistent characterizations, personal histories, and complex relationships that span generations of human storytelling. The tablets describe the Anunnaki's homeworld as Nibiru, a planet that orbits our sun on an elongated elliptical path, entering the inner solar system approximately every 3,600 years. This description, dismissed for decades as primitive astronomical fantasy, took on new significance in 2016 when Caltech astronomers Konstantin Batygin and Michael E. Brown published research suggesting the existence of a large, unseen planet in the outer reaches of our solar system. Their Planet 9 hypothesis, based on gravitational anomalies affecting trans-Neptunian objects, describes a body with roughly 10 times Earth's mass, orbiting at distances of 400 to 800 astronomical units. The theoretical parameters bear striking resemblance to ancient descriptions of Nibiru. According to Sumerian accounts, Nibiru's atmosphere was failing due to environmental degradation. The Anunnaki's solution involved infusing their planet's atmosphere with gold particles to create a reflective shield that could restore atmospheric balance. This proposed use of gold aligns with modern scientific applications. Gold's unique reflective and conductive properties make it invaluable in space technology today. NASA uses gold in the James Webb Space Telescope's mirrors and in spacecraft components precisely because of its thermal and reflective characteristics.
Webb's mirror segments began as beryllium ore, mined in Utah. They crisscrossed the United States to be formed, lightweighted, polished, gold-coated, and finally, perfectly placed on the backplane structure with the help of a robotic arm.
The ancients described a technology that modern science now employs. Archaeological findings support the exceptional status of gold in Sumerian society. The royal tombs of Ur revealed astonishing quantities of gold artifacts, including crowns, jewelry, and ritual objects dating to the 3rd millennium BCE. The craftsmanship and sheer abundance suggest that gold held significance beyond mere decoration. The Sumerians treated it as sacred, as something connected to the divine realm itself. Their texts repeatedly reference mining operations in a region called the Abzu, associated with the underworld and linked to Enki, describing literal extraction of resources from the earth. These were not metaphors. They were records of industrial activity directed by beings from another world. The creation of humanity. The Atrahasis epic, dating to approximately the 17th century BCE, contains one of the most detailed accounts of human creation in ancient literature. The narrative begins not with humanity, but with labor disputes among the gods themselves. Before humans existed, the Anunnaki employed a subordinate group called the Igigi to perform the hard work of mining, canal digging, and infrastructure maintenance. The Igigi were described as younger gods or divine servants, and their toil was immense and unending. After thousands of years of relentless labor, the Igigi revolted. They set fire to their tools, surrounded Enlil's dwelling in Nippur, and demanded relief from their suffering. This was not a minor disturbance. The entire operational structure of Anunnaki activities on Earth faced collapse. Without workers, the gold extraction that sustained Nibiru could not continue. The crisis demanded a solution, and Enki proposed one that would change the course of history forever. The tablets describe what happened next with remarkable specificity. The gods gathered in the Abzu, where Enki and the birth goddess Nin-Hursag, also called Mami, conducted what can only be described as a genetic experiment. They took the essence of a god, referred to in some translations as the blood of the gods, and combined it with clay from the earth, interpreted by many researchers as representing the indigenous hominins already present on the planet. Through this process, they produced a new being, the Lulu Amelu, or mixed worker. This hybrid creature would bear the labor burden previously carried by the Igigi. The first of these beings was called Adamu, a term that resonates unmistakably with the Hebrew Adam. The parallels extend further. The Sumerian texts describe a companion created from Adamu, a female called Tiamat, or Mother of Life, echoing the biblical Eve. The garden where these first humans lived, called Eden or Eden in Sumerian, was not described as an ethereal paradise, but as an actual location, a fertile plain in Mesopotamia where the gods maintained their agricultural projects. Humanity was created to tend the fields and relieve the gods of their work. The Sumerian word for worship, avod, literally means to work for. From the very beginning, humanity's relationship with the divine was one of service and labor. This account differs dramatically from both religious and scientific orthodoxy. Religious traditions present humanity as the beloved creation of an all-powerful singular deity, made in God's image for purposes of fellowship and worship. Evolutionary biology presents humanity as the product of natural selection, operating over millions of years without purpose or design. The Sumerian account offers a third option, one where humanity was deliberately engineered by advanced beings for specific practical purposes. Neither the beloved children of an infinite creator nor the random products of blind evolution, but manufactured workers designed to serve the interests of their creators. The forbidden bloodlines. The creation of humanity as a labor force was only the beginning of the story. According to the tablets, problems arose when the boundaries between creators and created began to blur. The Anunnaki, particularly those of high rank, began taking human women as mates. The offspring of these unions were called the Nephilim, a term that appears in both Sumerian texts and the Hebrew Bible. Genesis 6:4 describes them as the mighty men of old, men of renown, giants who walked the earth when the sons of God came unto the daughters of men. The Nephilim represented something unprecedented, beings who carried both celestial and earthly genetics, hybrids with capabilities exceeding ordinary humans, but falling short of full Anunnaki status. Their existence created a crisis within the Anunnaki leadership. Enlil, the strict commander who had never fully supported humanity's creation, viewed these unions as dangerous deviations from the established order. The Nephilim possessed powers and lifespans that could eventually threaten Anunnaki dominance. A hybrid population growing in strength and numbers represented an existential risk to the entire system of control. The Sumerian king list provides intriguing evidence for these accounts. This ancient document records the reigns of early rulers with lifespans far exceeding anything modern humans experience. The antediluvian king Alulim supposedly ruled Eridu for 28,800 years. Other pre-flood kings are credited with similarly impossible reign lengths. Mainstream scholars dismiss these figures as symbolic or mythological exaggeration. But if the Nephilim inherited extended lifespans from their Anunnaki parentage, diluted through generations of breeding with ordinary humans, these seemingly impossible numbers might represent genuine memories of an age when hybrid rulers lived for centuries. The biblical book of Genesis contains a parallel account. Chapter 5 records the patriarchs living for hundreds of years, with Methuselah reaching 969 years before death. These lifespans decline steadily through generations, as if some original genetic gift was being diluted through successive breeding with ordinary humanity. The pattern matches what we would expect if an original population of long-lived hybrids gradually merged with shorter-lived humans over many generations. Two separate textual traditions, Sumerian and Hebrew, preserve the same memory of an age when certain humans lived far longer than we do today. The tensions over hybridization and the growing Nephilim population would ultimately lead to the most catastrophic event in human prehistory. Enlil, frustrated by humanity's noise, defiance, and the corruption of Anunnaki bloodlines through interbreeding, decided that a reset was necessary. The solution he chose would nearly end the human story entirely. The flood that reset everything. The story of a great flood appears in virtually every ancient culture on Earth. The Sumerians recorded it first, and their version contains details that later accounts would echo for millennia. According to Sumerian tablets, Nibiru's periodic approach to the inner solar system caused catastrophic disturbances on Earth. Solar instability increased. Magnetic fields weakened. Polar ice caps began to melt. The Anunnaki, with their advanced astronomical knowledge, saw what was coming and made a decision about humanity's fate. Enlil determined that the approaching catastrophe would serve his purposes perfectly. Rather than warn humanity or help them prepare, he bound the other Anunnaki to secrecy. The flood would eliminate the troublesome humans and their Nephilim offspring, solving multiple problems simultaneously. The Earth could be repopulated afterward with a more manageable population under tighter Anunnaki control. To Enlil, the flood was not a tragedy but an opportunity for a fresh start. But Enki, humanity's creator and advocate, refused to accept extinction. Bound by oath not to warn humans directly, he found a loophole in the agreement. He spoke not to a human, but to a wall. Knowing that a man named Atrahasis, later called Utnapishtim in the Epic of Gilgamesh, and Noah in the Hebrew Bible, was listening on the other side, Enki provided detailed instructions for building a vessel that could survive the coming deluge. He specified dimensions, materials, and which living things to bring aboard. The survival of humanity would not occur through Enlil's mercy, but through Enki's defiance. Archaeological evidence supports the occurrence of catastrophic flooding in ancient Mesopotamia. Leonard Woolley's excavations at Ur revealed flood deposits suggesting massive inundation around 2900 BCE. Ice core samples from Greenland and Antarctica show abrupt climate fluctuations and spikes in atmospheric dust dating to similar periods. Geological studies document rapid sea level rise events that would have devastated coastal civilizations. The flood story is not unique to one culture because the flood itself was not unique to one region. Something happened, something that survivors remembered and transmitted to their descendants as the moment when the old world ended and a new one began. The aftermath of the flood reshaped human civilization entirely. The Anunnaki, according to the tablets, acknowledged humanity's survival and established new arrangements for coexistence. Kingship descended from heaven once again, this time to human rulers who served as intermediaries between the gods and ordinary people. The ziggurats that dominated Mesopotamian cities were built as dwelling places for the gods, temples where humans could approach the divine and maintain the relationships that ensured continued existence. Laws were codified, societies reorganized, and a new chapter of human history began, one shaped by the catastrophe that had nearly ended everything. The evidence they cannot explain. The Sumerian account of human origins raises questions that conventional explanations struggle to answer. Mainstream anthropology presents a gradualist model where humans evolved slowly through natural selection over millions of years. Fossil evidence traces a progression from Australopithecus through Homo habilis and Homo erectus to modern Homo sapiens. But this model contains puzzles that remain unresolved, and the Sumerian narrative speaks directly to those mysteries. The emergence of Homo sapiens approximately 300,000 years ago represents what paleoanthropologists call a great leap forward. Cognitive capabilities, social complexity, language, art, and symbolic thinking appeared with relative suddenness compared to the millions of years of gradual development that preceded them. The standard explanation invokes natural selection, responding to environmental pressures, but the timing and abruptness of this transformation have puzzled researchers for decades. The Sumerians offered a different explanation. Humanity received an upgrade, a genetic intervention that accelerated capabilities beyond what natural evolution had produced. Modern genetics occasionally provides tantalizing support for hybridization theories. The discovery that modern humans carry Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA proves that interbreeding between hominin species occurred and left lasting genetic traces. While mainstream science attributes these mixing events to natural encounters, the principle that different human-like populations could merge and produce hybrid offspring is scientifically established. The Sumerian texts simply extend this concept to include intervention by beings from beyond Earth. Archaeological discoveries continue to challenge conventional timelines. Göbekli Tepe in modern Turkey, dated to around 9600 BCE, pushes back the timeline of advanced human construction by thousands of years. This massive complex of carved pillars and sophisticated stonework was built by supposedly primitive hunter-gatherers who should not have possessed the organization, resources, or technical knowledge to create it. Mainstream archaeology struggles to explain Göbekli Tepe within existing frameworks. The Sumerian account of gods providing knowledge and guidance to early humans offers an alternative explanation that fits the evidence more comfortably than conventional theories allow. The precision of Sumerian astronomical knowledge presents another puzzle. Their observations of planetary movements, including the recognition of planets not visible to the naked eye, suggest access to information beyond what Bronze Age technology could produce. They knew details about our solar system that Western astronomy would not rediscover for thousands of years. Either the Sumerians were far more advanced than we credit, or they received knowledge from sources with capabilities exceeding their own. Their own explanation was straightforward. The gods taught them. Why this story was buried. The discovery of Sumerian tablets in the 19th century came at a particular moment in Western intellectual history. European society was deeply influenced by biblical tradition and the emerging disciplines of archaeology and anthropology. Scholars were constructing a particular view of human history, one that emphasized linear progress from primitive origins to civilized present, human exceptionalism as the pinnacle of creation, and a singular, transcendent deity as the source of moral and cosmic order. The Sumerian tablets threatened all three pillars of this worldview. They described multiple gods with human-like flaws and conflicts, rather than one perfect creator. They suggested that human civilization was not a gradual achievement, but a gift from advanced beings. They implied that humanity was created as a servant class rather than as the beloved children of the divine. These ideas were dangerous to the intellectual and religious establishments of the time, and they remain uncomfortable today. The response was selective acceptance. Sumerian contributions to technology, law, writing, and mathematics were celebrated as foundational achievements. Sumerian explanations of human origins and divine intervention were classified as mythology, interesting cultural artifacts, but not to be taken literally. The same tablets, written by the same people in the same script, received completely different treatment depending on whether their content aligned with prevailing assumptions. This bias continues today. Academic careers depend on working within established paradigms. Publishing research that takes ancient accounts of non-human intervention seriously risks professional marginalization. Funding flows to projects that reinforce conventional narratives, not to investigations that might overturn them. The system selects for conformity and filters out challenges to orthodoxy. Researchers who cross these boundaries, like Zecharia Sitchin, whose 1976 book, The 12th Planet, popularized the ancient astronaut interpretation, face dismissal from mainstream academia regardless of the evidence they present. But the tablets remain. They sit in museums around the world, available for examination by anyone willing to look. Their translations are published and debated. Their contents are increasingly accessible to general audiences who can evaluate the evidence for themselves rather than relying on gatekeepers to tell them what is real and what is myth. The information age may finally allow these ancient records to receive the consideration they deserve. Think about what we've uncovered today. A civilization emerged over 6,000 years ago, inventing writing, mathematics, law, and astronomy, the very foundations of our modern world. And yet, the same people who gifted us these achievements also left accounts of beings who descended from the heavens, engineered humanity, and intervened in our history in ways we are only beginning to understand. For millennia, those stories were dismissed as myth, treated as fantasy unworthy of serious consideration. But the Sumerians were not naive storytellers. They were careful observers recording events they considered real. If we give them credit for their innovations, intellectual honesty demands we at least examine their accounts of our origins. What knowledge has been deliberately ignored or suppressed? What truths have we overlooked because they challenge the narratives we've been taught to accept? The tablets exist, the translations are accessible, and the questions remain unanswered. Somewhere beyond the reaches of our solar system, ancient predictions may still be unfolding. When those cycles return, will humanity finally confront the truths buried since the floodwaters receded? The story of the Anunnaki is far from over, and one question hangs in the silence between the stars and the clay. If the creators of our civilization left a warning, are we ready to see it?